Hey guys, welcome back. Today I am going to do a little spread in my traveler's notebook, but I'm going to use my stash kit. I pulled together this stash kit to use in June. I did that over on my Patreon page, but you can see there's this fairly substantial lack of something in this kit. That is no pink. So I am challenging myself to not create with pink this month. Pink is my favorite, as you know, all too well, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge for me. I pulled together this kit mostly with Garden Party, so there are touches of pink in those elements. I'm just not going to use them, or I'm going to try really hard not to use them anyway. It is definitely my instinct to pull out the pink things. That's not what I'm doing today. Now I've got this little grid photo here that I put together, just little snippets of just a random kind of weekend, and I just did that on my phone. I can't even remember the name of the app, sorry. It is the Pick Frame app, and I just printed that. It's a little bit smaller than 4 inches. Just kind of randomly printed it out, and what I'm going to do is create a couple of clusters here. Now usually I would go for kind of 3 points of interest. Today I'm just going to do 2 and see how it works out. So I'm going to have my photo up on the top left. I've got a couple of different kind of layers in there. I'm using these 3x4-ish kind of cards. They were a cut apart from the Garden Party collection. I immediately cut the cut apart so that I could use them as cards for Project Life, etc. And so these ones are perfect. They fit in my traveler's notebook. I'm going to use this one here as a base for my title, as well as a little bit of journaling, and the other one just as a layering piece behind my photo there. So I've added a sticker from a super old Heidi Swap sticker sheet. That's going to be the kind of title for my page, Hello Weekend. And I really wanted to add a little bit of that kind of, I never know what sort of color this is. It's kind of yellow, but it's a very green yellow. Obviously, it's not my usual go-to, but that's the whole point of this kit this month. So I'm trying to push myself out of my comfort zone just a little bit. Now the piece that I had in this kit I've already used, and I had this torn edge already there. I figured I might as well just carry on and use that torn edge. I've trimmed down the rest of it so that it's going to fit on my left-hand spread. The problem that I had is when I put this little cluster piece onto the background paper, that 3x4 card kind of got a little bit lost. They're quite similar in color and tone. And the layer just disappeared, which is kind of fine, but I figured there's no point in having that layer there if I can't see it. So instead I swapped it out for this blue ephemera piece from the die cut pack. I'm just going to trim that down a little bit so it's not quite so long under my very square photo. And I've layered that with just a little kind of tiny word banner and one of the blue teal kind of colored flowers from the die cut pack as well. I decided to bring that piece back in though because I just want something underneath the blue flower just to kind of help that have a bit more contrast off the background, but those are all the layers that I'm going to add onto there. Now my whole thing with pushing myself out of my comfort zone when I'm not using, you know, my favorite kind of colors, one of my sort of techniques for being a bit more comfortable is to use a technique that I feel comfortable with, which is repeat stamping, obviously. I'm going to create a second background on here, so I'm going to end up with 2 patterns on the background, which I really love. I'm going to do this very, very subtly though. So I've got a couple of stamp sets from Citrus Twist. One is the 4x6 Currently set, and one is the 6x8 Storytelling set. And I've picked out quite a few of the smaller stamps. So again, I want to go subtle. So I want to create a small pattern. I'm going to use smaller stamps. Now I'm just going to stack these in horizontal rows up my block here. I don't make you watch all of that because it does take a while. I'm trying to come up with a reasonably square shape on my block. So I get to this point, I've got a couple of little gaps, which you can leave if you don't mind a more sort of random pattern. But because I've got these 2 stamp sets and I do have some smaller, very small single word stamps on there, I'm going to fill in those little holes, and so I've got a fairly reasonably square block of stamps on my block. Now I also want to do it subtly, as in with color, so I'm not going to stamp in black or anything like that. I'm using this very pale mint color. It is called Mint to Be from Catherine Pooler. It's very subtle. It's quite a lot like paler when it dries down. So here, when you can see me stamping, it does dry a considerable amount lighter than that. So there's no kind of clashing with those two patterns. This dries down very subtly and works nicely with that stripe. So you can see here with the block this full of little stamps, it does not take very long to stamp at all. The difficulty that I have, and I'm not quite there yet, is when I attempt to stamp over the middle of my book, the left-hand side is a lot thicker than the right-hand side. So I do end up having to grab a little bit of bulk, and I just used my mouse pad just under the right-hand side. It kind of evens things up a little bit. Using that mouse pad gives it a little bit more give. The stamping's still not perfect, but given that I'm using a torn edge and it is a very subtle pattern, I'm not actually like super disturbed that the pattern isn't perfect. It is what it is. It didn't take me long, and I love that I got a little bit of repeat stamping in there. So there isn't a whole lot left to do on this layout now, apart from stick everything down. This card's already ready to go, so I'm just going to adhere that down and then try and adhere my little layers down on the left-hand side in a very similar way. I never managed to get these exactly right, but I'm going to attempt to get those down. I did remember to adhere down that background, and you can see how that torn edge kind of covers over a little bit of that not so fantastic repeat stamping. It kind of just adds to the look of it, I guess. Now the last thing I'm going to do is just add a tiny bit of embellishment with some of these Garden Party puffy stickers. I love these. They're so soft and pliable, which is like kind of a little bit different than usual, and I really love them. I'm going to add some accents with this black, just because my photo is quite dark, or my photo grid is quite dark, and everything else is very pale and light. So I want to add a couple of pops of black in here. I added the XOXO underneath my title, and then I just added that. I love that kind of little ferny border, a black heart, and then I decided I knew there were, they're mugs, cups, teacups. I did talk about coffee in my journaling, so I decided I had to add this little green, I'm going to call it a coffee mug because that's what it is now, and then I'm going to add a couple of little pieces of gold just to give it a little bit of sparkle and call the page done. So despite not using any pink, I really love how this turned out, and I'm excited to see how the rest of the month is going to go. Thanks for stopping by today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you want to keep watching, there are a couple more videos on screen. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.